there was this comedy routine by Nate Bargatze. Is that the way to say his name? I'm not sure. And he jokes about that if he went into the past, he couldn't prove he was from the future. He couldn't do it because we're the recipients of modernity in many ways. But I don't actually know how a lot of the machines I use work.
How does an engine work, bro?
Yeah, I asked ChatGPT to explain it to my kid when he asked, could you, Razib? We all know I'm a word cell intellectual fraud, but could you prove you're from the future if we put you in a time machine?
How far will we have to go?
Where do you want to go? You can choose it.
Well, I mean, like, for example, I know geometry, so like if we go back beyond like Pythagoras' time, I could be like, check out this triangle, and now like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna calculate some stuff, and then you could measure it, and I'm gonna be right?
Yeah. I feel like I could pull it off, but I need like a day to think of my strategy, to study what I'm gonna reveal to the ancients to try to get my credibility. But I fear that if I didn't study for the test, I would fail it. That's my fear.
Yeah, I think like, if you have a STEM background with some math, I definitely think like I definitely remember enough calculus or algebra, which algebra. Well, I mean, Diophanes had like some form of algebra in the ancient period, but really algebra famously was perfected more by the the Islamic period. So that's 1500. So the math stuff that I would know, like in terms of science, the problem with a lot of lab science is you need a laboratory. So I mean, how am I gonna, show my ability to titrate without beakers and stuff? So with math, you don't need any of that, right? So I think with math, like you have some insights. Obviously, I would know some physics, like in terms of Newtonian mechanics. I could like illustrate like the constant acceleration,
Yeah. I can see that. This is what I could figure out in the day of study. This is what I would figure out in my day of study.
Like you would do like force equals F, like you these things, like force equals mass times acceleration.
Yeah. I like
you could kind of illustrate. You could do a lot of basic physics.
I would demonstrate that I can lessen the impact if the time of impact is greater with that little trick where you throw an egg into a blanket. That might impress the ancients. If I demonstrate that if I throw an egg really hard at a blanket, it won't crack because the time of impact has been extended and the impact is less. So maybe that would wow them. Otherwise, I would say something and not be able to prove it. I go, we're rotating around the sun, and they go, you're an idiot. And I go, yeah, I guess I'm an idiot. Please don't kill me.
I think I would probably be able to. It would take a day to schematize it, but I think like most modern people could probably put together some sort of primitive steam pump, right? Okay. I mean, it wouldn't be very good because like you need certain types of like ball bearings and other things to really get it good. But even the ancients, like Hellenistic Greeks, like Hero had a steam pump. But like, yeah, some sort of steam engine. I think we could probably, because we understand like certain principles of like gases and heat and energy transfer now. So we could probably be like, look, this is how it works. And you could do like little mechanical things like that. And obviously, all right,
I'm envisioning us going back in time like a Bill and Ted's Adventure, and you've thought this through, and you're doing a steam engine, and I just create a marble run, and they love that way more, and you're just totally pissed off about it. That's what I'm envisioning right now.
What about? Here's another idea though. So we actually know with the solar system, we actually know its structure, and so this would like have to take a little bit more time, but actually probably you could go to an astronomer and be like, look, this is the solar system, and now use this model, and they'd be like, oh wow, that model fits our predictions, right? Because famously they had all these epicycles, these complicated models that could predict. And then they had to keep adding epicycles because their underlying model was wrong. The model made good predictions, but the model was wrong. the thing about the heliocentric model is that it wasn't very complicated, but it made okay predictions, you know? And so I could show, like, look, this is actually what the solar system looks like. It's heliocentric, and you have these moons around these planets, and there are these planets. I also predict that once you get better lenses, you're going to find this planet and this planet.
Yeah.
So I mean, if there's good glass works, you could like, okay, I'm just like going like crazy now, but if there's good glass works, if there's good glass, no, I am like, now I'm thinking about this. If there's good glass works, definitely, I think we could figure out like a telescope of some sort soon. And like glassworks is like dates to like the Roman period, you know. Might be have to like figure out like how to get really clear glass, but that's a thought. Like telescopes are an obvious idea. Like I think like glasses start showing up in the late medieval period, if I'm right. The earliest glasses, like for like, you know, for like your vision, and so that sort of stuff would be but yeah, I think there's a lot of things like that. There's like L. Sprague de Camp, science fiction author, I think wrote a series where somebody went back to Justinian's Byzantine, like a modern person, and the person was luckily he, like L. Sprague de Camp, who was an engineer, was trained as an engineer, and so he did all these cool things. Also, you could probably hot air balloon.
Yeah. Oh, maybe. I mean, I don't know how to do a hot air balloon. I was thinking about making an arch I could impress some people at some point.
Yeah. A lot of architectural stuff. Although arches, like people forgot how to do really good arches in the Middle Ages, and they had to rediscover it. Like Brunelleschi's, was it the Duomo in Florence? Like was like the big curved dome. I mean, obviously, like they could do a curved dome in antiquity with the Parthenon, the Pantheon, and then Hagia Sophia. But then like they kind of like lost some of the skills. So this again goes to what I was saying, where skills can get lost. And I mean, they're still trying to figure out how ancient Roman mortar worked. I think they finally figured it out.
I mean, how lost are they? Because I saw that meme on the internet. These cathedrals, you mentioned Hagia Sophia, but these other cathedrals in France, and people say, we don't even know how to do this anymore. We don't even know how to make it. I find that implausible. I feel like if you gave Elon Musk, I don't know, a couple years to try to figure out how to create one of these high-level cathedrals, it could be done.
It could be. I think the issue is what's going on there, and this is true in science too. There are things that people never write down, and they're just like passed through like apprenticeship. And this was obviously way more common in the pre-modern world when like manuals weren't a big thing, right? Yeah. And so like a lot of it is like masons and like other like skilled trades. A lot of those kind of went into decline, and a lot of people aren't doing it, and so there was just like a lot of like details that were lost. They say the same thing about the Apollo project. Modern engineers, like they know how to design a social network.
Yeah.
Or like do optimize video games, but they don't know how to do like some rocketry.
Yeah, I mean, we need to create maybe a term for that if it doesn't exist already. These expertise that falls out of tradition and can't be recaptured. And the way the Mongols could ride a horse in a way that nobody today can ride a horse, because that was so much a part of their life. And being on a horse was so important to their culture that they could shoot a bow and arrow while doing a backflip while the thing's going at full speed or whatever they could do. And nobody knows how to do that because nobody needs to know how to do that. That's an example of progress in a way writ large, but it's also an example of decline in one particular sphere where it would be still cool to have that skill just, I don't know, to show off.
Well, so one thing that I someone asked me about this recently. I think this was actually in New York when I gave the talk, but bow and arrows. It seems like the earliest archaeological dating we have is 54,000 years ago. At the site, the Mandarin site in southern France. But it looks like human populations like forget how to create a bow and arrow over and over again. And the reason that I think that this is true is they forget because it's still a skilled. To actually have a functional bow and arrow that's not like just a toy, like that's a skill, like something like a compound bow, like what the Mongols have, right? That's a lot of skill. So you need to have like a skilled, person in your community. And just like sometimes maybe just like that person dies, and like these small communities just don't have these people. So they forget them, but they're rediscovered over and over again. And I think that they're rediscovered because the principle is actually quite simple. The overall general principle is quite simple. But it's like having to relearn how to create like the string, how to create that, how to layer like the different layers for the bow. And then there's also a skill in how to use it. Because like the medieval crossbow was really popular because even like a peasant without many skills could use it. But the longbow and a lot of the other like bows that aren't mechanical in any way, again, you need to learn how to use it. And so there's like all these layers of the skill of creating this basically a manufactured good, and then using it. Well, you have to have some skill, and it seems like we just kept forgetting and rediscovering over and over again. And I think it's just because it's just difficult. And if you're a farmer and you're not a hunter, why do you need a bow and arrow unless you're a warrior? And then like a warrior is like only a small proportion of society. And if there's not that many wars, or you switch to mostly like infantry shock, I don't know. It just seems like in especially small scale societies, they lost their bow and arrow. I mean, I think like the Australian Aborigines, for example, lost the bow and arrow at some point. They probably almost certainly had it. And then they lost it. The Tasmanians lost the ability to like make fire. So that happens,
Yeah.
People forget things and they have to rediscover it.
I mean, not everybody needs fire. It seems like the Inuit peoples or the people in places like Nunavut in Canada, people just eat frozen, just everything frozen. That's what's delicious to them. Yeah, they think we're idiots. They think we're idiots and we're ruining food because we're not eating frozen whale.
Well, they also, another thing that they also do, there's like a whole article that I linked to about this. There's an anthropologist that thinks that rotted meat was like that our ancestors ate a lot of rotten meat because the rotting with the bacteria and with the larvae, they break down the meat and they make it more palatable. So
dry aging is something we do today. That's
it is. We still do it. But so there was one of the I forget which expedition, one of the Arctic expeditions. So the Inuit, sometimes they'll kill a seal and they'll just like hide it somewhere and let it rot. And so this guy found a buried seal, and it was like covered in maggots. And he was like he tried to bring it back to the ship because he was like, like this is going to be delicious,
Oh my God.
But like, and apparently like, I don't know if it was Commodore Perry, but he was like, get away. Cause it was like, there was like this rotten seal that had all these maggots and stuff, but he ate it. Can you
imagine how bad that smells? A fishy seal that eats fish rotting dead with maggots. And yet, again, the diversity of humanity, one man's trash, another man's treasure.
So there was a thing. And so this article by this anthropologist started out with like, one of the things is like, a mid 20th century anthropologist in the Congo was out in the forest with some Baka pygmies or something. And basically there was like a dead rat, a muskrat of some sort of giant rat that was like floating in the river, and it was like all bloated because it was like rotten. And like they like raced up to it in the boat and they brought it into the boat, and the pygmies just started eating it like crazy.